Welcome to the Millennial Life Coaches podcast. At MLC, our mission is simple: add value to help you take on massive action towards your life goals. Here, we feature amazing coaches from all over the world, share compelling stories, and discuss proven practices to help keep your energy high and in the flow. Learn more about MLC at millenniallifecoaches.com.
Welcome to another episode of How to Get Ahead with Millennial Life Coaches. I am your host for today, Lorna Taylor, and I'm joined by Sarah Dawkins, who has just told me, as well as being from the UK like me, she's based in Spain, and we've just had the classic weather chat about the sun. So that has already been got out of the way on the podcast, so we can chat more about you, Sarah. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Lorna. It's great to be here.
Could you just give us a little summary for our audience and anybody who's listening and watching, who you are and what you do?
I like to consider myself as a free spirit and not attached to my job title. There's a whole story in that as well. So I'm a holistic health coach now. I used to be a registered nurse. I worked for 20 years as a registered nurse in the UK and the USA. And I'm married with millennial children and grandchildren.
Awesome. So what I feel like you have to dive into the bit a little bit more about not having the label, because I tend to start the podcast and anybody that I come across, what's your name? What do you do? Tell me about your business. So that's an interesting way that you're phrasing it. So dive a little bit more into that.
And you've just hit the nail on the head there. Who are you and what do you do? And what we do, we sometimes take that on board and become that. Who are we? We are a nurse, we are a coach, but that's not who we are, that's what we do. And it's about separating those two out. And for the majority of time that I was a nurse, I would say, I'm Sarah, I'm a nurse. But actually, being a nurse isn't who I am, it's what I did. So there's a whole lot of healing needs to be done around authenticity, because authenticity is who we are. And a lot of people get lost in what they do rather than who they are. They align with their job. And all I ever wanted to do was to be a nurse until literally I died. So when I started healing myself and seeing the power of the mind and the body working together, I realized that nursing was incongruent with who I was becoming. And who I was becoming was a different version of a younger version of myself. And the nursing was the part of me that wanted to care for people and help vulnerable people. But what I realized is I wasn't yes, I was helping them, but I was actually keeping them in that medical model with pills and with treatments. And when I really looked at myself in my own healing journey, I healed a whole slew of health problems, from eczema, psoriasis, candida, burned out adrenals, underactive thyroid, PTSD, bulimia nervosa, mental health problems, depression, suicidal thoughts. I healed all of that. And I thought, I just can't be a nurse, because now I know how powerful our bodies are. I need to step away from that. But that brought out that, well, who am I if I'm not Sarah the nurse? And that's when I realized I was aligned with my job. I'm like, well, who's Sarah when she's not a nurse? So that took me down a different path. And we need to look at, who are we really? What do we like to do? What do we like to eat? What do we like to wear? Where do we like to go? Because we get stuck in this, I need to be this person to be liked by others. I need to be this upstanding professional person so that people think I'm a good upstanding person of the community. And we put on all these layers of who we think we should be. But it's about other people's opinions of us. And that's how we grow into the person we've become, until we start peeling all of that back and go, well, who am I at my core? And that's who we need to be more of.
That sounds like very intense, deep identity work.
It was, and it is.
The only thing I can relate to is the identity shift that happened in me when I had my kids. So when I stopped being a teacher, Lorna as a teacher, to Lorna as a mum, you had a big identity shift. And then even since then, I've had to go, okay, but what else am I? I'm not just a mum. What else am I? To then find out, oh, I like doing this, and I'm interested in this, and I'm also good at this. But there's a big process. That's not a quick. It's not a quick thing. It's a huge amount of work. It like deep work as well.
It is, and you have to come back to the question: who am I?
Yeah,
because we get lost in what we do. A mum, a teacher.
There's probably loads of people that are like, well, but I don't know who I am.
And I didn't know who I was because I'd piled on so many layers. I need to be like this. I need to talk like this. I need to wear these clothes. I need to look like this. I need to act like this. I need to have this profession to please others. And when we can heal that need to please others, then we can start coming back into who we are. It's challenging to find who we are when we're still people pleasing.
So going back into your journey then, Sarah, of your like career as a nurse, where was that turning point, or what was that turning point that really changed everything for you?
It was in 2005. I qualified as a nurse in 2001. We went to America to a new life, to try a new culture in 2004. And in 2005, one of my nurse colleagues asked me why I was using pharmaceuticals at home. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's what everybody does, right? So I like to think I'm quite open-minded. So I went on the internet every day, every evening, literally researching, found out about how powerful our minds and our bodies are, started finding people who'd healed themselves. So I started making tweaks to my lifestyle. But I didn't do that until I'd done some research, and I didn't do that until I was, so it was being challenged by a nurse colleague that made me sort of reel back, like, well, what do you mean? Because looking back, I was quite close-minded. You know, this is how it is. This is how I see the world through these goggles, and none of this existed until she challenged me, and suddenly all of this existed. I'm like, wow, look at that.
Isn't that mad that you can be so within like an institution or a system, and you just feel like that's the only way, because when you're within it, they tell you this is how it's done, and this is the only way, and this is how it's always been done, and you, because you're in it, you go along with it and you believe it and you take it on. It's only when you're, like you say, challenged, or maybe you come out of that bubble and that institution for a minute and you realize that there's a whole rest of the world just existing without this, and you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe it isn't as important and it isn't the only way. And like you say, you start looking around and researching and starting to discover alternatives. I think that's amazing that you've been able to come from like the healthcare sector, almost not do a 180, but come like in a completely different perspective.
Yeah, I was in that system for 41 years because my mum was a nurse too. So I was raised in that medical model, and then I thought that nursing was where I wanted to go. As I said, to help people, to care for people, to help them with when they're being vulnerable. But actually, yes, it is. I still want to help people and care for people, but I actually want to give them the responsibility to help them, to help themselves. And nursing wasn't allowing me to do that.
Yeah, no, I can see within that structure, yeah. So if anyone is sort of in a similar situation in terms of like they want to find out more about who they are or start to ask questions and research, where do they even start? Where could they start? What's an easy thing that they could start with?
Well, first of all, they have to work out who they are currently and why they are currently like that. And I realized I dressed and acted and spoke in a certain way to please others. So what are you doing that is a bit inauthentic, that you've learned to do to be accepted by others, to please others? And then when you see parts of you that you've developed over the years, look deeper in what are they covering up? Who are you underneath that? What do you like to eat, to wear? Where do you like to go? What hobbies do you like to do? What things light you up and give you energy and really nourish your soul? And what things drain you? So it's asking some deep questions to find out who you are at your core and reconnecting with that person, because the person we were as a child was our authentic self. And then we slowly layered on different traits. So if we can understand who we were, and obviously know that we've grown since then, so there's still going to be some alignment with who we were, but what is it that we like to do? And if we don't know, it's just a case of go out there and try different things, try different foods, try different clothes, try different sports, walk in nature, read books, research on the internet, and find out, ask yourself, what is it that I really love to do that nourishes my soul?
And what was that for you then when you were going through this big change? What was it that you tried and explored and rediscovered?
Nature. I love nature, and being outside in nature really nourishes my soul. And reading, I hated reading. I was a good reader in school, but then I just didn't find what really challenged my mind. So it wasn't until I actually did my coach training in 2016 that I started reading. Obviously, I had to read for my nursing exams, I had to do the research, but it didn't light me up. Whereas 2016, when I was recommended some books, I'm like, wow, where have these books been all my life? And it was things like Joe Dispenza, Louise Hay, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton. And those books were like, wow, it's nourishing my soul. This is what I want more of. And I really, really started to read a lot. And now my bookshelf is absolutely teeming with books. And I've just got this thirst for knowledge as well, whereas previously I learned what I had to learn. And I was called lazy at school because it didn't interest me. What I was being taught and Shakespeare, and there was no interest there. So it's find what you love to do. Try lots of different things. I love colour, as you can see. But when I went through a really dark patch 3 years I spent in a deep, dark depression and had suicidal thoughts, I realised looking back I only wore black and dark grey. Whereas now I never wear black, I just have lots of colour around me.
And I can see behind you, Sarah, you have got some books. So as well as being an avid reader, you have also written a book yourself. So can you tell us about the book, Heal Yourself?
Yes, thank you. So Heal Yourself started as I was coming out of the dark depression, and I'd healed all those other health problems. And because to me it was new knowledge. I'm like, I can't be the only person that doesn't know this. So I started writing about my own health journey, what I'd healed, how I'd healed it, what I'd done along my path. But didn't know how to progress it. I think I got about 10,000 words in, and like my mind went, who do you think you are? That negative mind chatter. And although I accept it's my voice in my head, it was other people's words. Who are you? You're not an author. What do you think you're doing? So I put my book away for 5 years on my laptop, literally, because who am I? Who do I think I am?
5 years?
Yeah, because I was still on my healing journey. I hadn't got to the stage where I know who I am. I don't need that voice going, who do you think you are? Because when it shows up now, I go, well, I know who I am. Who do you think you are telling me that? So yeah, 5 years, and suddenly one day I woke up and like, I've got to write it. It's got to have other people in it, sharing what they've healed and how they've healed. 74 people came back to me when I reached out on social media, sharing things like multiple sclerosis healing, motor neurone, or ALS as they call it in America, asthma, allergies, autoimmune, a whole range of autoimmune conditions, stroke, Lyme, endometriosis, lots more mental health problems, and everybody's healed it without pharmaceuticals. And I thought this is what the world needs, to see people who are healing all these things that doctors say we can't. So Heal Yourself was born in English, and I live in this tiny village in Spain up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere, but it's very multicultural. So I have a friend translated it into Spanish, another friend translated it into Dutch, and another friend translated it into French. So it's in 3 other languages because not everybody speaks English.
I can't believe that was in your drafts in your head for 5 years before you managed to get it out. That's insane.
I know. But, who do you think you are? Well, that took some healing.
Yeah. And so within the book, do you share the stories of, I think I wrote down that you shared the stories of other people's experiences and how they've healed themselves alongside your own story?
Yes, it's their own stories in their own words. So everybody's got their own chapter,
So
and they've written what they've healed, how they've healed it.
Why did you want to include everybody else's stories?
To show the world that I'm not just one person telling you this. Here's 74 other people also saying the same, that they've healed themselves. And if we can heal, we've all healed these health problems. And the doctor said we couldn't. And yet here we are healed. So it's a case of, don't just believe me. All these people have provided contact details. Contact them, find out, read their stories. And the same with my podcast, which is a continuation. It's just sharing real people, everyday people, healing things that we're told we can't heal. And they're sharing the what and the how to keep spreading the message that we can heal all these health problems and symptoms.
MLC's community and network is built on integrity and value, and it really does help people succeed and get in front of the right people. And so with everything that I've experienced with MLC, all the work that I've done with them, alongside them, and the things that I have seen MLC do, I know that there is incredible power and potential in this platform and this community, and I can't wait to see it continue to grow. So far, it's been an absolute pleasure to be part of the community and to receive just the incredible support and resources that MLC provides.
And so where can we find your book, Sarah, if someone's interested in finding more information about this?
Thank you. It's on Amazon worldwide, and in America, the English version is also available in Barnes & Noble. And if people go into Barnes & Noble in the UK, I'd like to get it in there as well. So please go in and ask for it.
It'd be awesome to see your book in a real bookshop.
Yes.
Amazing. So is that something that you're working towards, get it into bookshops across the world?
It is. It's not top of my priority, but it is. I'd like to get it into airports as well, because obviously I fly back to the UK periodically.
What else is on the horizon? What have you got on your goals list? What is your focuses for this year?
I've got 2 focuses. One is speaking from more platforms, so guesting on more podcasts, but also speaking from a physical stage and platform as well. And I have another book in my head that I'm doing some research for about people's perceptions of empathy, which came about from a discussion with my husband. We realized we see it very differently from each other.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't
Yes.
talking about that.
Yes, and of course, if we raise people's awareness around empathy, it will hopefully spread more empathy around the world.
Oh, that's a real interesting topic to talk about. Ooh. So some really, really exciting things coming up for you then. How is it that you run your business at the moment? What is it that you work? What is it that you offer in your business, and how is it that you help people beyond your book?
So I have a one-to-one program. A lot of my clients get rapid transformation on the first session. So I offer a 90-minute session to help people get that rapid transformation. I do one-on-one coaching, and I have a group coaching program it's called Root Cause Healing, and it covers the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual pillars of healing as I've devised, which all need covering, not just to stay healthy, but to heal as well. So I've got that. It's a 4-week coaching session with a call a week and a workbook a week.
Awesome. And how's that going? How have people responded?
Brilliant.
What are the transformations like? Can you tell us anything about some of the clients that you've helped?
Yes, people start to see parts of them that they haven't seen before. One lady last week said she's late 70s, and she said, I've never told anybody this before, but I fear that I'm going to die every day because I heard a child when I was in junior school, heard one of my classmates had died. And she said since that she just lived in fear that she would die at any day since that age of junior school. And she was in her late 70s, and she had lots of health problems because she had health anxiety. And suddenly she linked where the health anxieties come from and the fact that she's living in fear of dying. And that wasn't on her conscious radar, it was subconscious, which was manifesting in symptoms. So I helped her work with that and gave her an extra book about inner child healing, because she needed to do a lot of work with her little girl that witnessed that, but it was never addressed by anybody. So massive realization, transformation. And just a lot of people start to look at where their emotions are running away with themselves now, where they've come from, why it's happening. And others have linked they've suddenly become aware of their personality, where they try, and again, it comes back to people pleasing. So they've spent their life trying to please their partner and actually realize they're making themselves incredibly unhappy because they're not living their lives for themselves. So there's some deep conversations had to be had in the relationships so that they could understand who they were and live a life that they wanted to live for themselves, as well as working with their partner to keep the relationship on a good footing. So it raises all sorts of issues that people suddenly, it's about self-awareness, becoming aware of what's really going on. What is the message behind this symptom? What is it trying to say to me? And stepping away from the need to take a pharmaceutical to quiet that symptom and actually dig into it to understand what the message is behind that. And then most people, they already know in their deep subconscious, but when it comes to their conscious brain and they suddenly have that realization, it's so great to see, because go, oh, so because of that's yes. And you just see that revelation in their face. It's just amazing.
And I bet if they'd have gone through some of that work or asked those questions sooner in their life, they would have saved themselves years of heartache and depression and health issues. And think of all that time almost wasted that they weren't aware, and they weren't able to access all the good things in their personality and enjoy all the things that they suddenly realize. There's a huge amount of time wasted, especially the lady in your 70s, you said. There's a huge amount of time.
But I do believe as well that we have to go through what we go through, and that when the time is right for us, we will become aware of it through one means or another. And it's not wasted per se, because as well as building some unhealthy coping mechanisms, we also build some coping mechanisms and some resilience. And it makes us who we are. Who we are now is a product of everything that we've been through in our lives. So we've built up all that knowledge and wisdom. And we then find what we need to heal and the message behind it. And that changes us. It changes us is radically, because not only do we become more self-aware, we become aware of other people and how they interact with us, but also their reactions. They can reflect our behaviors back to us as well to help us become more self-aware. So I don't believe it's, yes, I would love to say, I worked all this out in my 20s and therefore led a better life. But actually, I feel that I needed to go through that. And I see that dark depression and suicidal thoughts as really a transition turning time in my life, because it changed my life trajectory. I realized at that time that nursing wasn't right for me. And although I still wanted to care, I needed to go into coaching. Didn't know what coaching was at the time, but I worked it out and went into coaching to help people to help themselves. And I wouldn't have changed my life trajectory if I hadn't have gone through that deep, dark depression. So I think things happen to us to help us on our life path.
Yeah, that's a really positive way of looking at it. I would just personally hate to get to an age in my 70s and think I should have been told this sooner, or I wish I'd have discovered this 30 years ago and I could have led a different life. But what can you do when you get to that stage?
Better late than never though, right?
Yeah, better late than never. Yeah. I mean, I get asked a lot because I've come out of education and I've come out of teaching that, on a sort of parallel kind of path that, if you could go back and change things, or, what's wrong with schools these days? What would you do different in the education system? Is there something that you feel that could be done differently in the medical field, like being an ex-nurse? With hindsight and with your experience now, what would you like to see happen, in the NHS or in, medical professions across the globe? Where is it that it's going wrong, do you think?
If we look back at history, ancient wisdom, we used to use herbs and we used to use compresses and we used to use a whole range of different alternative, as we call it now, which is ancient wisdom. Back then, women were burnt at the stake for doing it because it wasn't understood. The Flexner report came out, and the Rockefeller Institution, changed medicine, in air quotes, forever when they started making pharmaceuticals, petropharmaceuticals, so it's linked to the petroleum industry. And because of the money they had, they put articles out in newspapers to poo-poo alternative medicine. Look at this brand new medicine. It's all these pills. We can stop your symptoms. We can heal you. You don't have to change anything. You just have to take a pill. And that's how today's modern medicine came about. It was through propaganda and money from the Rockefeller Foundation. And if we look at alternative medicine, as it's still called, which is ancient wisdom, there's still elements of uncertainty around it because of all the propaganda that we've received. And when you look that pharmaceutical companies and medical equipment companies sponsor doctors' training, so they're all put into this bubble to do with pharmaceuticals, investigations, surgeries, procedures. It's all in this pharmaceutical bubble. If we could pop that bubble and take it back to bring back some ancient wisdom and stop pharmaceutical companies sponsoring doctors' training, it would help them to see past lumping a lot of symptoms together, giving it a diagnosis and then finding a pill to go with that diagnosis, because that's all they do. And it's not the doctor's fault, that's how their training is. So if we could step outside of that and help doctors to take on board some of that ancient wisdom and use those alternative practices. There's energy work, there's chiropractic, there's acupuncture, there's massage therapy. There's so many different things on top of the herbs and spices and ancient things we used to do. There's so much. And even things like psychology now, and psychiatrists have this box and they try and fit everybody into this box. And I'm a round peg, I don't fit into a square box. So, if we need to look at change the way we look at the world and let people be more who they are, but with a social responsibility. Because at the end of the day, we're all connected. And what we say and do towards others reflects back on us as ourselves. So if we can bring more compassion and empathy to the world and treat people how we want to be treated, it's a huge leap forward.
Well, that's a massive mission, bigger than just yourself. That would be a huge U-turn across the world. But I can understand it. When you do the research and you look at the history, and really our modern medicine is only in the last 100 or so years. Going back further than that, there's a lot we can learn. I'm sure tons that you can share with us and clients and our coaches and our community about some natural ways of healing yourself. Is there anything that somebody could do, immediately, like today, to make themselves feel better, to take like a tiny little step on the journey to healing themselves? If they're just listening to this now and they just want to do one little thing to improve their energy, make themselves feel better, just head in the right direction, what would you say to them is one little thing that they could do today?
What brings you joy? Ask yourself that and follow your heart. Do more of what brings you joy. Because the lady that I was working with recently said, I don't do the things that bring me joy. I've stopped doing the things that bring me joy. And a lot of us have fallen into that because life's got so busy and they've got to do this and this and this, and they've got all these obligations, and they feel that outside of obligations, they feel that they ought to do other things as well. So take a moment and just understand where you are in life, what you're doing, and are you doing things that bring you joy? And if not, why not? And really schedule in time to do those little things that bring you joy. And also understand what stresses you. And understand that the things that stress us is in the external world that we have no control or responsibility over. We can only control ourselves. We're only responsible for ourselves. So let go of feeling the need to control all of that. And that will massively help you to let go of a lot of stress when you realize you cannot control those things. So do more of what lights you up and stop trying to control everything.
And what would that one thing be for you then? What would bring you joy today?
I love nature. I walk my dog twice a day in nature. I'm out for nearly 2 hours every day walking in, and we live in the mountains in a tiny little village, and it's just peaceful, very, very quiet, lots of bird song. The almond blossom have just finished. The citrus are all in blossom now. The smells are amazing. The sky's blue with a couple of little clouds, the sun's shining. It just really uplifts me.
I would have to agree with you about the nature, because I didn't think I was a nature girl or a green-fingered person, but we moved house about 6 months ago, and over the winter we have just watched the garden in our new house. We've just watched what has been growing and what we can see, and now that spring has hit, there's just all these things popping up, and I've just spent so much more time in the garden than I ever would have thought I would, because it's just like seeing new things pop up. They almost feel like a little surprise, because I never planted them, because it's a new house. It feels like a little surprise. So I'm out there tidying bits up and just hanging out in the lawn and stuff. So I'm finding a lot more joy in nature, because I feel like it's a new space for me. And so I totally get the being around nature does does bring me joy, and I would say it brings joy to most people. They just don't realise it, or maybe they've not found a nice space yet to appreciate it. But yeah, even just going for a walk, or being by the seaside. I love being by the seaside when the sun is out. They're very, very simple things, but they bring you joy.
And the simple things are often the best things.
Oh, wonderful, Sarah. It's been a lovely chat. I'm looking out the window. I can see my garden already, just sort of like, oh, I'll pop out there later. Where can someone find you? Where can someone connect with you? Where would be a good place for them to go to find out more about you and your work?
Thank you. My website, www.sarahdawkins.com. That's SARAHDAWKINS.
And any socials? Where are you active?
All my socials are on my websites.
Lovely. We'll make sure we're connected on Instagram, because that's our kind of main hub. So we'll make sure that anything to do with your book or any of your content, we'll also kind of get behind it as well. Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day out with your dogs. And yeah, I hope everything goes well this week. Good luck with the podcast and your future books. I would love to know when you do get to the point of writing your second book, if we can help in any way. We'd love to get behind that, because I don't see anyone talking or writing that much about that topic of empathy, but I think that's important as well. So we'd love to.
Can I just say, if any of your listeners want to help me out, I've got a questionnaire. It can be anonymous. I'm just looking for people's perceptions. It's all going to be confidential. Nobody's going to be named. It's just, I'm finding so much interesting information. I would love more people to come on board and share their own experiences, and it's their personal experiences, not what the internet says or the book says. It's what they think about it.
Oh yes, absolutely. We will get a link to that maybe in the show notes of the podcast, or we'll make sure we put that out to our audience. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks, Lorna.